Hello there, Stan Robinson Jr. here. I'm flying solo today on today's Sales Navigator Insights. I'm going to be talking about Forrester's relatively recent research report on Sales Navigator. And to my knowledge, this is the first time that Sales Navigator has done anything like this, although if any of you know of a previous independent research report on Sales Nav, please let us know in the comments. Now, speaking of comments, under this LinkedIn event on the LinkedIn platform, in the comments, I put a link to the report itself. It's actually a link to a summary of Forrester's report by Sales Navigator that Sales Nav put together. And at the very bottom of the summary, you can download the original report itself if you'd like. So a couple of things. I'm not going to dive into the research methodology in detail. All research reports like this involve a certain methodology, and different research teams will use different research methodologies. In this case, Forrester interviewed, let's see, I'm going to have to look at some of these figures, but they interviewed decision makers at about 9 organizations. And these 9 organizations aggregate had 2,198 Sales Navigator users. So some had as few as, say, 15 or 16 users, and others had hundreds of users. And what Forrester did that was interesting is they aggregated the data from the entities that they interviewed and put together kind of a composite company. And the composite company, they decided to use a SaaS software company as their composite with 250 Sales Navigator users and $250 million in revenue. Now, the biggest takeaway from this research was that they found that users of Sales Navigator, and I need to put a caveat on this, this is users of Sales Navigator Advanced Plus accounts. So I'm going to come back to that in just a minute in terms of talking about the difference between the different levels of Sales Nav. But they found that the companies they surveyed experienced a 312% ROI over the 3-year period. And that the Sales Navigator subscriptions paid for themselves just in terms of increased revenue and some cost savings. They paid for themselves in less than 6 months. So by any measure, a 312% return on investment and an investment that pays for itself in 6 months or less. And then, of course, after the initial 6 months, all of that is simply incremental revenue because the investment in the platform has already been paid for. That's impressive any way that you cut it. So when it comes to the methodology and how they did the report and how they calculated ROI, and they were using a number of other metrics as well. Download the report. If you love those types of numbers and so forth, you can get into it in detail in the report itself. I just wanted to highlight some of the findings from the report. Now, first, I mentioned that they did their research on Sales Navigator Advanced Plus users, and that's the highest level subscription. So Advanced Plus users have access to all the capabilities that are available through Sales Navigator, including syncing with certain CRM systems, such that entering information into Sales Navigator, for example, will update your CRM without you having to go back and forth. Team Link, in terms of being able to view connections throughout your organization, even people that you're not directly connected to, and other capabilities. So Advanced Plus is the highest level subscription. Below that is simply Advanced. And Advanced, the main difference between Advanced and the introductory level subscription, which is called Core, is that with Advanced, you get access to smart links and certain sharing and collaboration capabilities on SalesNav. So the main point I wanted to make here is just to note that the research was done on Advanced Plus, which is Sales Navigator's highest level subscription. And some takeaways, though. The good news is that a lot of what they found in terms of the benefits of using Sales Navigator don't only apply to Advanced Plus users, but they also apply to those at other subscription levels, Advanced and Core in some instances. So a few of the benefits. Interviewees noted that their reps using Sales Navigator gained access to a broader pool of qualified leads based on criteria that you will use if you're setting up the personas that we always talk about, which is title, function, seniority, and geography. And also, the users of Sales Navigator got higher response rates to outreach, which resulted in more meetings and stronger pipelines, which is one of the primary focuses of why we use Sales Navigator, is to build our pipeline of qualified leads. Now, the other thing related to this, and these are some things that help in terms of the steps leading to adding new leads and accounts to your pipeline, is the tools also allow their users to track updates from prospects and keep up with relevant new developments that they could use to start conversations that provided business insights into what was going on at accounts of interest. So that could be job changes. It could be mentions in the news where you can congratulate someone, funding events, simply people who are posting on LinkedIn, because one of the capabilities within Sales Navigator is, of course, you can filter by people who've posted within the past 30 days. Now, also, we talked a little bit about some of the search alerts, some of the things you can do in your search filters, like filtering by mentions in the news, posting in the past 30 days, job changes, all of those you can see in alerts and to some extent in filters as well. Now, one thing that I found interesting, I'm not an Advanced Plus user, I'm an Advanced user, but those who do have access to Advanced Plus and are using the CRM sync feature, one of the things that the research noted was the time savings associated with being able to have one system update the other without your having to flip back and forth between systems. So that propagation of data from, say, Sales Navigator to your CRM was extremely useful, just in terms of the time saved and the accuracy of the data in CRM. Because one of the other things about being able to sync between Sales Navigator and your CRM that may not be as obvious is just the fact that Sales Navigator's data is pulled from LinkedIn's database, which is updated by users. So whenever users are making updates, it updates, of course, both LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. So one of the beauties of these platforms is that this is self-reported data, and that it is usually fairly up to date. When people change jobs, they will normally update their LinkedIn profiles relatively soon after they change companies and after they're promoted within their existing company. So one of the benefits of the Sales Navigator tool, if you're using CRM Sync or even if you're not using CRM Sync, is the fact that users are updating their own data and that the data is relatively current and accurate, because people, when they're self-reporting, they know what the correct information is about their title and other relevant details about them and their position, rather than relying on a third-party tool that's trying to get their hands on information like titles, emails, etc. So self-reporting, the self-reporting aspect of Sales Navigator data is powerful. Now, some other things. I mentioned time saving. I mentioned, or at least alluded to, the fact that the integration between Sales Navigator and CRM systems can help to eliminate some manual tasks. And manual tasks, of course, take more time, and they're more prone to error, rather than having the system simply share the same data. Now, digging a little bit deeper into some of the things that the research found, is they also found an increase in net operating profit due to increased sales opportunities, which of course resulted in higher revenue. So the good news is that this tool also helps the company's bottom line. And other productivity gains, another one that is not as obvious, and they didn't mention the specific third-party tool that they referred to in the research. But in some cases, the use of Sales Navigator can replace the use of another third-party tool. So instead of having to use two tools, you can use just one and reduce the cost of the redundant tool. So that was another benefit of Sales Navigator, because some organizations using third-party tools found that they really didn't need to use those tools anymore, and that they could cancel those subscriptions and benefit from the cost savings of having just one tool to do the work that formerly two tools were needed to do. And other areas, we already mentioned data accuracy, data enrichment, which is just a fancy way of saying making sure that data is complete as possible, and updated on a continual basis. And one thing that we talk about a lot on this show is social proximity, and the fact that Sales Navigator allows you to identify your best path in to people of interest by seeing who your shared connections are, who may be able to give you introductions. If you're using Team Link, you can see if other people within your organization, including executives, are in a position to give you an introduction to prospects that you are trying to form connections and build relationships with. One of the other areas that was of benefit that the research called out was increased collaboration between team members on a team. Because since you can do everything from sharing lists to sharing searches with each other, it makes it much easier to collaborate. Say, for example, SDRs and AEs are working together as a team, and maybe the SDRs are doing a lot of outbound calling and they're passing qualified leads on to their account executive for follow-up. Those teams are easily able to share information internally using Sales Navigator. So this is going to be a relatively short episode. I just wanted to give you some of the highlights from Forrester's research. I thought it was awesome that Sales Navigator used an external company that's as well known and has the great reputation that Forrester does to do some independent research on the benefits, both quantitative in terms of metrics like net operating profit, and more qualitative in terms of increased collaboration within teams and some of the other things that are a little bit harder to put a number to, but are just as valuable as some of the quantitative benefits. So hope that's been helpful. I do encourage you to go ahead and go to the comments on this event on LinkedIn to get the link to the summary of the research report. And of course, as I said before, you can scroll to the bottom of that page and download the research report yourself if you like. Alrighty, have a great day and we'll talk soon. Bye now.